Hi, folks. Welcome back to Critico's Corner. Did some searching around the internet, some articles concerning some of the anomalies / irregularities of the 2020 presidential election, and I came across this article from The Spectator. These are all facts they're going to list here, folks. Reasons why the 2020 presidential election is deeply puzzling. If only Crank finds the tabulation strange, put me down as a crank. This is by Patrick Basham. Now, before we proceed with this is some disturbing stuff in here. Before we proceed, I want to thank all my new subscribers. I really appreciate it. And I've got a subscribe button now on the channel. I would really appreciate it. I'll never ask anybody for money, but what I will ask is for your support. And if you can click that subscribe button and get me to 1,000 subscribers, I can start buying some equipment and really start ramping up the channel. I would really personally appreciate it. All you do is just click that subscribe button. I appreciate it. Let's read on. First disturbing thing I see is a photograph. It says 11/3/2020 general election, unused ballots to be shredded after 12/3. After 12. Where do those ballots really end up? In fact, in Pennsylvania, I believe it was, and Georgia. This is in Georgia. The hundreds of thousands of ballots came in uncreased. How did they get there uncreased? How? They have to be mailed or put in an envelope at a drop-off box. And to do that, you have to crease them. And there were hundreds of thousands of ballots that weren't creased. That's evidence of itself. But let's continue. To say out loud that you find the results of the 2020 presidential election odd is to invite derision. Derision, the evil word. You must be a crank or a conspiracy theorist. Mark me down as a crank then. I'm a pollster and I find this election to be deeply puzzling. I also think that the Trump campaign is still within his rights to contest the tabulations, which they still have the legal right, you guys out there. Biden is not president-elect until technically the electors meet. Something very strange happened in America's democracy in the early hours of Wednesday, November 4th, and the days that followed. It's reasonable for a lot of Americans to find out exactly what. To want to find out. First, consider these facts. President Trump receives more votes than any previous incumbent seeking re-election. He got 11 million more votes than in 2016, the third largest rise in support ever for an incumbent. By ways of a comparison, Barack Obama was comfortably reelected in 2012 with 3.5 fewer votes than he received in 2018. If you remember, the enthusiasm factor was off the hook for Obama in 2008. Trump's vote increased so much, according to exit polls, he performed far better than many key demographic groups. 95% of Republicans voted for him, extremely high. It might be the highest. He did extremely well with rural male working class whites. He earned the highest share of all minority votes for Republicans since 1960. For you younger people out there, that is Richard Nixon, John Kennedy. Trump grew his support among black votes by 50% higher than over 2016. Nationally, Joe Biden's black support fell below 90%, the level below which Democratic presidential candidates usually lose. Trump increased his share of the national Hispanic vote to 35%, huge for a Republican. With 60% or less of the national Hispanic vote, it is arithmetically impossible for a Democratic presidential candidate to win Florida, Arizona, Nevada, and New Mexico. Bellwether states swung further in Trump's direction than in 2016. Further. Florida, Ohio, and Iowa each defined America's media polls with huge wins for Trump. Since 1852, folks, that is 8 years before the Civil War, only Richard Nixon has lost Electoral College after winning this trio of those three states, Florida, Ohio, and Iowa. And that 1960 defeat to John Kennedy is still a subject of great suspicion It's joked about. Midwestern states, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, always swing in the same direction as Ohio and Iowa. They're regional peers. Ohio likewise swings with Florida. Current tallies show that outside of a few cities, the Rust Belt swung in Trump's direction. Yet Biden leads in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin because of an apparent avalanche of black votes, I should say black voters, in Detroit, Philadelphia, and Milwaukee. That's Pennsylvania, of course, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Biden's winning margin is derived almost entirely from such votes in these cities, as coincidentally his black vote spiked only in exactly the locations necessary to secure victory. While the other areas, the black vote did poorly, or not nearly as good as that. He did not receive comparable levels of support among comparable demographic groups in comparable states, which is highly unusual for a presidential victor. In other words, large cities, we'll say black voters in Los Angeles and black voters in Detroit were way skewed. It's just 3 states he did really well, and that's a coincidence. Those are swing states. Another thing that makes you go, wait, there's more here. We are told that Biden won more votes nationally than any presidential candidate in history. But he won a record low of 17% of counties. He only won 524 counties as opposed to 873 counties for Obama in 2008. Yet Biden somehow outdid Obama in total votes. That means that some of the ton of votes that went for Biden came from specific tiny demographic areas, which is, it's obvious what happened. It's obvious what happened. The ballots that came in fraudulently. You don't have to be Sherlock Holmes to figure it out. Let me read that again. But he won a record low of 17% of counties. He only won 524 counties as opposed to 873 counties Obama won in 2008. Yet Biden somehow outdid Obama in total votes. Those things don't jive. Victorious presidential candidates, especially challengers, usually have down ballot coattails. That's true. When the person that wins the presidency does really well, the down ballots a lot of times follow. In fact, most of the time. Biden's did not. The Republicans held the Senate, enjoyed a red wave in the House, where they gained a large number of seats while winning all 27 tossed-up contests. All 27 tossed-up contests were won by Republicans. Trump's party did not lose a single state legislature and actually made gains at the state level. Another anomaly is found in the comparison between the polls and non-polling metrics. The latter include, these are non-polling metrics, party registration trends, which are all trending Republican, the candidates' respective primary votes. He had huge percentages, whereas Biden had small ones. Candidate enthusiasm. Let's tell the truth here. Even people that hate Trump's guts can see there was no huge enthusiasm for Joe Biden. Social media followings. The numbers are huge. Trump had a huge social media following compared to Biden. Unbelievable. Broadcast and digital media ratings, online searches, the number of especially small donors, and the number of individuals betting on each candidate. All swung in Trump's favor. Despite poor recent performances, media and academic polls have an impressive 80% record predicting the winner during the modern era, even with the fiasco of 2016. But when the polls err, non-polling metrics never, as the ones we just read through. The latter have a 100% record. Let me say that again. Let's go back here. Candidate enthusiasm, respective primary votes, party registration trends, social media followings, digital media ratings, online searches, the number of small donors, the number of individuals betting on each. Those are the non-polling metrics, and they have been 100% correct in the modern era. They don't list what the modern era is, but I assume it's the last 50 years. Even non-polling metric forecast Trump's reelection. For Trump to lose this election, the mainstream polls needed to be correct, which they were not, and we all know they weren't. Furthermore, for Trump to lose, not only did one or more of these metrics have to be wrong for the first time ever, but every single one had to be wrong. I call this a coin toss. I think you can actually say, if you believe this is all accurate and none of it is fraudulent, then Biden flipped the coin 10 times in a row and called it correct. By the way, for those wondering what that is, if you flip a coin 10 times in a row, it is 1,024 to 1. I think it was more than that. And I'll get to that at the end. Unbelievable. For the first time ever, every single one had to be wrong. And at every same time, not an impossible outcome, but extremely unlikely nonetheless. Here's some points here to make. A typical voting pattern is married with misses by polling and non-polling metrics should give observers pause for thought. Adding to the mystery is a cascade of information about the bizarre manner in which the ballots were accumulated and counted, which is true. The following peculiarities are also lack compelling explanations. 1. Late on election night, with Trump comfortably ahead, many swing states stopped counting ballots. In most cases, observers were removed from the counting facilities. Counting generally continued without observers. Statistically abnormal vote counts were the new normal when counting resumed. They were unusually large in size, hundreds of thousands, and had an unusually high 90% and above Biden-Trump ratio. I've run in 5 local elections. Absentees and mail-in ballots do not swing that wildly. Late arriving ballots were counted. In Pennsylvania, 23,000 absentee ballots had impossible postal return dates, and another 86,000 have such extraordinary return dates that they raise serious questions. What they're referring to is if you get a letter in the mail and it's postmarked the 3rd of November and you get it the 3rd of November, that's almost impossible. It's impossible. But yet, look at these numbers. Over 100,000 had these kind of issues. The failure to match signatures on online mail-in ballots. The destruction of mail and ballot envelopes, which must contain signatures. Mail-in ballots, got to have signatures to match. None. The envelopes were discarded without observation by people, I might add, except for the person that's doing it. Historically low absentee ballot rejection rates despite the massive expansion of voter mailing. You can look it up. The voter rejection rate for mail-in ballots is, I forget, 3, 4, 5%, 10%. It was like one instance, I think one state was Nevada, where it was 4,000 times less than normal, something like that. It was some incredible amount where they had 10,000 rejected, and this time they had like 52 or something like that. All of a sudden, these huge swings in the number of ballots that are rejected from rejecting them to almost rejecting none, all on November 3rd. Such is Biden's narrow margin that, as political analyst Robert Barnes observes, if the states simply impose the same absentee rejection rate as recent cycles, then Trump wins the election. They changed the rules. They changed what constitute getting rejected. It's incredibly obvious. Missing votes. In Delaware County, Pennsylvania, 50,000 votes held on 47 USB cards are missing. Non-resident voters. Matt Brainard's Voter Integrity Project estimates that 20,312 people who are no longer met residency requirements cast ballots in Georgia. And with the upcoming runoffs for both senators in Georgia in January, look out. Biden's margin is 12,670, by the way. Serious chain of custody breakdowns. Invalid residential addresses. Record numbers of dead people voting. Ballots in pristine condition without creases, that is, they have not been mailed in envelopes as required by law. How do you mail a normal size piece of paper without folding it? How do you do that? Every single one of them, put them in a perfect manila envelope so it wouldn't be creased? Come on, let's cut through the crap, because the ballot envelopes that came with them, you have to fold it. But yet, there were hundreds of thousands. They had no creases at all. Statistical anomalies. In Georgia, Biden overtook Trump with 89% of the votes counted. For the next 53 batches of votes counted, Biden led Trump by the exact same ratio of 50.05 to 49.95% margin in every single batch. That was exactly the same to the decimal point. How is that even possible? How is that even possible? 50.05 to 49.05% margin in every single batch come out the same statistically. Percentages were exactly the same in 53 batches. It is particularly perplexing that all statistical anomalies and tabulation abnormalities were in Biden's favor. All of them. I call that flipping the coin. Whether the case was simple human error or nefarious activity or a combination, clearly something peculiar happened. If you think that only weirdos have legitimate concerns about the fighting claims, maybe the weirdness lies in you. And that's absolutely correct. At the beginning, I think if this was all in the up and up, and this is all legit, and Biden won, and all those anomalies and all those historic firsts, all were true. All were true. I consider Biden flipping a coin 20 times and calling it right. I don't think that's out of line. And by the way, for those of you that are wondering, flipping a coin 10 times is 1,024 to 1. Flipping a coin 20 times, which at least had to happen to make, and there's tons more anomalies. This is just a small list. Flipping a coin 20 times and calling it right, the odds are, wait for it, 1,048,576. Let me repeat that. 20 coin tosses called correctly is 1,048,576 to 1. And even 10 coin tosses, which he needed way more than that to pull all these anomalies off, is 1,024 to 1. Statistically, it's impossible. Could it happen? Technically, yes, but we know it didn't. Folks, we've been hoodwinked. Look at this picture with the unused ballots. How secure were they? Nobody knows. Nobody knows that all the mail-in ballots that came in, all the envelopes were chucked just in the areas in the states where Biden needed them. Philadelphia, Milwaukee, Detroit. Things that make you go, we know what happened. We know exactly what happened. Here's what I would love SCOTUS to do, the Supreme Court of the United States. I don't know if they have the authority to do this or not, but I hope they do. They say, you know what? There are so many anomalies in these states, not all 50, but all of these states that are in question. Let's do this. One of two things. Either we just say to hell with it and redo the whole damn thing. I don't know if they have the authority to do that. Pick a date in January or February, whatever date you want. This is going to be the rerun of the presidential election. I don't know if they have that authority. You'd have to ask a constitutional scholar. I'm not one. Or two, say these peculiar things that happen are just overwhelmingly evidence that something happened. The circumstantial evidence is so overwhelming that the electoral votes from those states cannot be certified. Therefore, those states don't get any. Those are the only two things that I think SCOTUS, the Supreme Court of the United States, should do. This is unnerving, folks. This is unnerving. Those of you that hate Trump's guts, this should be unnerving to you. The end does not justify the means. You're screwing with the Constitution. We've now looked like a banana republic. This is the crap that goes on in dictatorships in third world countries. Not here, but it is here. And here it is. You can't talk any of those talking points away, that list that I went through. Nobody can, because they're all true. How can you have 186,000, I believe it was, that came in late, 2 or 3 days late? And they're still counting, by the way, and it's after Thanksgiving, so I don't want to go into that. All 186,000, all pro for Biden. 0 for Trump, 0 for the third-party candidates, which there were 2, I believe, Green Party and Libertarian, and maybe even more, who knows. They all got 0. Oh, was that human error? Yeah, I don't know. Was it? And how many human errors weren't caught? This is a fiasco. And you can't blame Trump for this. He's the reason for all the discord in the U.S. Horse crap. Horse crap. This thing is disturbing. Deeply disturbing. And why nobody's checking it out? Because they don't want to know. They don't want to know what happened. They just care about the result. And until next time, folks, goodbye and good luck.